Hey everyone, this is Pastor Doug, and if I could just add to this past Sunday's Ash Wednesday message, it was an Ash Wednesday message on Sunday, but that's how we do things at Westside Christian Church. If I could just add to that message, I probably would talk a little bit more about Ash Wednesday, the Christian calendar of which Ash Wednesday and Lent and Advent are a part, and even the liturgical style of worship. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with any of these terms, but very, very roughly, very, very simplified, there are at least two different kinds of churches. C.S. Lewis called them high church and low church. He liked the high church, but he did not condemn the low churches. He was aware of them. The more technical term for them is liturgical, which means they have a liturgy, an order of worship that comes from the denominational head and that is consistent across all the congregations in that denomination. So no matter what Lutheran church you go to, no matter what Catholic church you go to, you're going to have the same liturgy. You're going to have the same scriptures. You're going to have the same order of worship, whichever congregation you go to. That is liturgical. They tend to be more ritual-based, routine-based. I don't know what the opposite of that is. C.S. Lewis called it low church. I don't know what the other term might be, the opposite of liturgical, but that would be what we are. We're a little more free form. We still do have a liturgy. I mean, we're going to do a certain number of songs. We're going to do communion. We're going to do offering. We're going to do a message. I'm going to cut you loose, which is the term that I always use. So we have a liturgy. It's just a little more simplified than what theirs is. So Ash Wednesday comes out of that. Ash Wednesday is part of the liturgy. It is part of the Christian calendar that liturgical churches follow. We follow Christmas, we follow Easter, we've accepted those, but they also have Advent, they have Lent, they have Christmastide, they have Ordinary Time, they have several other observances as well that we either aren't aware of or just aren't interested in. So there is a large difference between these two churches. I thought about talking about that a little bit, but it wouldn't have helped us out. It would have put us over time. Still, I think it's important to note there are differences in the way we worship, and those differences are okay. If you look at me, I broke out of the form that I was given this low church form. We are gonna celebrate Christmas, which some people didn't even do that. I went to the Bible college with a guy who thought Christmas was wrong. But most of us are going to celebrate Christmas. Most of us are going to celebrate Easter, but we're not going to do too much else. That's just the way we are. I broke out of that a little bit. When I started to break out of it, when I became a little more interested in the liturgical side of things, I was, of course, called liberal. I was called wrong. People say, why are you doing this? Because we have this tendency to say, my way is right and the other way is wrong. Again, going back to C.S. Lewis, when he talks about high church versus low church, he tells a story, or maybe it's not even him. Maybe it's his biographer that tells the story. I can't remember. But in either case, they told the story that someone approached Lewis. They knew he favored the high church style. And they said, well, what do you think of these low church Christians? And Lewis said, we must never talk about that. And the reason for that was he knew that could cause division. He knew that could create, one group saying we're right and you're wrong, and now we're going to fight about it. And he didn't want that. He didn't want to be a part of that. He liked what he liked. He had his reasons. He never converted to Catholicism the way that his friend Tolkien did, but he stayed with the Episcopal Church because he liked that liturgical style. He was fine, though, with the churches more like us, the more low church style. I believe we need to be more that way. Again, my experience was we're right, everybody else is wrong, we're going to fight about it. I followed the crowd when I was younger. When I became aware of Ash Wednesday, literally through that Joe Biden news story that I showed you, I said, I want to investigate these things a little bit. I did experience some blowback, some people telling me that I was wrong or I was liberal or I shouldn't be messing around with these things. But I looked into it and I found out that, it was worthwhile. Not all of it's worthwhile. I don't want to go full high church. I don't want to go full liturgical. When I say that's not worthwhile, it's not worthwhile to me. I like our way of doing things, but I can see value in the other way as well. I can see that neither is really right or wrong. They are just different. Paul tells us this in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. I love this statement. You're familiar with the statement before this where he says, pray continually, be joyful always, give thanks in all situations. Everybody knows that part. The next thing he says, though, is test everything. Hold on to the good, avoid every kind of evil. So he tells me I'm allowed to test things. I'm allowed to look at Ash Wednesday and say, maybe I want to try that out a little bit. I'm allowed to look at the liturgical style and say, maybe I want to see if there's any good in there. And if there is, I'm allowed to bring it into my circle. I'm allowed to use it if it benefits me, if that brings me closer to God, if that helps me hear the Lord and become transformed. I'm allowed to bring that in and say, hey, I think there's good in this, and I'm going to do that. So I didn't have any opportunity. Those thoughts were in my mind in the introduction. I knew that would take us far, far, far off course. So I just said, hey, some people may not like me mentioning Ash Wednesday, and I'm just going to have to accept that. But if I could just add to that message, that's what I would add. There are differences, even among genuine, true, authentic believers who rend their hearts and return to God. There are differences. I don't think those differences are right and wrong. In fact, I think God loves them all. He made all kind of grass. He made all kind of trees. He made all kind of fish. I think he made different kind of people who interact with him and draw closer to him in different ways. Ash Wednesday is just one of those ways. God bless you all. Thank you for giving me some time.